Hello, Abnormal Family. It's nice to see each and every one of you today. I would like to invite you, if you haven't subscribed personally, to subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell, hit all. That way you can get all of our latest uploads. We got a lot of boots on the ground coming up, a lot of places we're going to visit. It's going to be a fun time this year. 2024 is going to be the rise of abnormal investigations. Guys, I got another one for you today, and I believe you're going to enjoy this one. Let's get right to it. December 28th. 2020. My father has always hunted, ever since I can remember. He never had less than 2 or 3 hounds at a time. Today, I guess you could say he is retired from a sport. His legs won't let him travel in the woods the way he used to. Now he owns a few small feasts and hunts occasional squirrel. In his youth, however, there is not much ground in the mountains of Tennessee that he hasn't covered. Now everyone says if you're in the woods long enough, there comes a day that you will finally see something. For Tennessee, there have been stories and rumors of mountain lions and pumas that live high in these mountains. Anyone who has hunted a lot of their lives here will tell you that there are things in the woods that only a few men have seen. My father, however, believes that one night he and 2 other men he was hunting with ran into a wild man. This figure has been called such for many years. We have all heard of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, ape-man. My father is unsure what the true term should be for what they found. He and a cousin and an uncle went on a late hunt one night. They gathered their dogs, loaded the trucks, and set out into the woods. He recalls that they had been hunting for a little over an hour when the dogs appeared to be barking up a ridge. When you coon hunt, you turn your dogs loose and follow close by until they give you a good loud call, letting you know they have something treed. When my dad heard the dogs, he told his cousin he was going to walk around the ridge and see if they were coming from the direction. His cousin decided to walk straight up the ridge and see if the dogs might have been at the top. About 30 minutes later, they all met back up at my dad's. Says, remember the look on his cousin's face. He was pale white and looked like he had been scared by something. When they got him calmed down, he told them what he encountered at the top of the ridge. He said that he made it to the top and spotted one of the dogs. It seemed to be whining at that point and ran in another direction, tail tucked. He said he had wondered what was making the dog so nervous when he heard a crunch about 20 feet in front of him. When he looked up, he could only stare. Nothing was making a sound in the woods, and the woods had also gone dead, silent. Standing only 20 feet away was a sight he couldn't even believe. He said it stood taller than 6-foot man. The hair on this thing was an inch long and black as coal. The eyes looked almost human and were what he described as wild eyes. The thing had an angry look to its face that only made you want to run. It was standing next to a tree on its hind legs like a man. Its arms hung to its sides and its fingertips were nearly to its knees. When he saw its hands, there were long red nails that came out from the fingers. The smell he described as skunk-like. It would almost take your breath. What scared him to the most was the growl that came out of this thing. He said it was almost like a man's yell combined with a roar. That broke him out of his shock, and he began wondering if this thing was going to charge him. He had no gun with him. He was the only one out in the 3 that was not armed, and he knew he was alone unless he could reach the bottom of the ridge. He saw a log lying on the ground and decided against running, afraid of showing fear would only make this thing turn on him. He picked up the log and began beating it nearby a tree and screaming at the thing as loud as he could, and praying for a miracle. All at once this thing turned and ran away back into the trees. When I asked later if he believed he scared it, he would deny this, saying, I doubted it. Something that big was not afraid of me, but rather didn't really care to approach him or didn't see the need to. He would claim that anything that this big probably didn't see many creatures as a threat. After the thing had turned, he told them he had ran fast as he could, possibly, back down the ridge in case it changed its mind and decided to come back. By this time they had located the dogs, but none of their dogs seemed thrilled any longer to be in the woods. They simply stayed tucked under the men's feet, whining with their tails between their legs. They decided to take the dogs back to the truck. After putting the dogs into the truck, my dad suggested they go back and see if what they found anything else. The cousin was resilient to go back in, but he was convinced that they were now together and that they had guns. They began walking back to the area where the cousin had encountered the thing. After walking for a while, there was a stench in the air. My dad would describe it as a soiled yeast smell. He said it was like the worst body odor or skunk smell you would ever experience. They continued walking until they thought that they were surrounded by the smell. That is when they noticed the ground. There were leaves and grass mounded and piled around on the ground. He said it looked like a type of nesting or bed. The smell seemed to linger on the mound, and they imagined maybe the thing slept here. That is when they noticed hair matted onto some of the leaves. They picked up one of the hairs. Just as my cousin had said, the hair was jet black. My dad said you could smell the stench on the hair. That is when they heard that growl. It seemed to echo and seemed pretty far from them. Even so, they all decided now was the time to go. They all turned and ran back to the trucks, finally making their way to the road. They did not say anything as they all climbed back into the trucks and sped out of there. My dad has never saw the thing his cousin described. In some ways he wanted to know what it was his cousin had seen. He asked the cousin what he believed it was. Man or beast. It was obvious the cousin had been terrified from the description that they were given. My dad and his uncle wondered if rather anyone had saw Bigfoot or the Bigfoot legend. Could it have been a wild man? My dad says the cousin described it as being tall but just over 6 feet, and it was built and stood a lot like a man. The eyes did seem human. There was no glowing or imaginary horns like some of the things we have heard been told. It seemed raw and wild, but also very human-like too. Either way, there is one lingering question that is always asked. I asked the question to my dad as well. Why is it that we don't ever get a good pictures? Why is it, out of the 3 men, no one that night decided to take some of the hair? Why is it that we only have these stories? Their answer was fear stopped them. Whatever this thing was could hurt a man. My dad does have his regrets, but simply leaving, but worries. What could have happened had they stayed? This never stopped my dad from enjoying a good hunting trip. For years he would continue to hunt the mountains of Tennessee, and he has never seen the creature himself. But if what his cousin described that night is true, we may have our own Sasquatch or wild man living right here with us, or whatever it is. So what do you guys believe that they ran into that night? I would say it was a juvenile Sasquatch would be my guess, or a female that had bedded down. But I look forward to seeing what you all think it might have been. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for watching and supporting us and for supporting Hunter. We're going to bring him home soon. You guys are awesome, and you literally melt my heart. Thank you so much, guys. Until next time, keep your head on a swivel, and don't be something's dinner.